The alien fleet cut through the darkness of space, a series of sleek, silver warships gliding toward the small, blue planet ahead. At the heart of this fleet stood the colossal flagship Zarula, bristling with advanced weaponry and glimmering with the subtle luminescence of Zarulian shielding technology. Captain Ur, a veteran of countless battles and the seasoned commander of the Zarul warships, sat confidently on his high-backed command chair, surrounded by the cold brilliance of the bridge. His black and gold uniform, adorned with medals of valor from past conquests, gleamed under the artificial lights, a testament to his decorated career and unyielding authority. The bridge bustled with the muted hum of efficient activity, holographic displays showing data from their ever-advancing approach to Earth. Officers moved with precise discipline, adjusting coordinates, monitoring communications, and preparing weapons for what they all expected to be a swift and effortless victory. Captain Ur observed their movements with satisfaction, his four shimmering blue eyes narrowing slightly in a smirk as he spoke to his second-in-command, Commander Kral. Ur said, his deep, resonant voice dripping with disdain. A primitive world clinging to its last fragile threads. It is almost an insult to be sent here. Kral, a younger officer with a sharp jawline and an eagerness to prove himself, echoed his captain's sentiment with a sneer. The High Council must think it a formality, Captain. Surely these humans are no match for even the weakest Zarul scout ship. Ur chuckled, his rich laughter reverberating across the bridge. Around him, the crew joined in, the sound mingling with the subtle beeps and hums of their advanced systems. Arrogance and overconfidence emanated from every officer, each fully convinced that humanity was a lesser species, one that could never threaten the might of the Zarul fleet. As the fleet closed in on Earth's orbit, the anticipation among the officers only grew. They had fought and defeated civilizations far more advanced than these humans. The Zarulian warships, their sleek designs honed for both speed and power, approached in a flawless formation, a wall of inevitable destruction descending upon the planet. Yet, as they drew closer, a peculiar sight emerged on their screens, stirring the crew's collective curiosity. Hundreds of metal rods floated in orbit around Earth, arranged in loose clusters and forming a defensive grid. They were long, almost featureless and undeniably crude by Zarulian standards. With no visible propulsion systems, no advanced plating, and no discernible energy signature, they looked almost like leftover debris from some ancient human construction. Ur's eyes narrowed at the sight, though his smirk only widened. What a joke, Kral remarked, his voice thick with ridicule. Are these sticks supposed to stop us? Another officer, monitoring the rods on a nearby display, gave a derisive laugh. Captain, I'm reading no significant energy output, no weapons, no shields, nothing of note. This is humanity's grand defense. The bridge filled with laughter once more. Even Yor, though a touch more contemplative, could not help but indulge in the humor of the moment. The Zarul fleet had defeated armadas of plasma-wielding conquerors, repelled hive mind swarms, and laid waste to entire planetary empires. Against such a history, a collection of crude metal rods seemed laughable, desperate. Yet, somewhere deep in the recesses of Captain Ur's disciplined mind, a whisper of unease lingered. He was a seasoned warrior, well acquainted with the tactics of desperate foes. Those who had nothing to lose often wielded their last cards with unpredictable ferocity. The rods, silent and unmoving in the vacuum of space, unsettled him in a way he could not easily dismiss. But pride was a powerful thing, and the Zarulian doctrine left little room for doubt. This was to be a swift conquest, and he could not afford to show weakness. Prepare the fleet, Ur commanded, shaking off his discomfort. We will break through their defenses, shatter any hope they cling to, and establish our dominion over this system. Earth will bow before the might of Zarul. The officers moved with renewed vigor, inputting commands and charging weapons. They spoke to each other with cocky enthusiasm, already envisioning their victory. Despite his underlying unease, Ur allowed their confidence to feed his own. Humanity had not yet shown any signs of resistance beyond those pitiful rods. His fleet, with shields and energy weapons capable of devastating entire continents, was ready to annihilate anything in its path. As the Zarul warships drew nearer, the rods continued their silent vigil, floating with an air of quiet indifference. The tension in the air was almost palpable. though the Zerul officers ignored it, blinded by their arrogance. They were warriors of a galactic empire, a force unparalleled in its power and precision. What could these humans, with their fragile, primitive world, possibly do to stop them? Captain Yure's eyes remained fixed on the holographic display before him, watching the rods with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. He would not let himself be distracted by doubts. This was just another victory waiting to be claimed. Yet as they entered Earth's orbit, the silence of the rods seemed to deepen, pressing down on him in a way he could not easily explain. A feeling, a foreboding presence, seemed to whisper that the unknown was often the most dangerous. Even as he prepared to give the final order for an assault, that uneasy whisper remained, buried beneath layers of Zarulian pride. The rods drifted on, silent and watchful, like harbingers of a threat yet to be unveiled. And in that final moment of stillness, the proud Zerul fleet sailed forward, unaware that their overconfidence would soon be tested in ways they had never imagined. The Zerul fleet advanced steadily, the flagship Zerula leading the armada. Earth's orbit seemed quiet, the metal rods floating in eerie stillness. Yet, as the warships closed the final distance, an unexpected phenomenon occurred. One by one, the rods began to shimmer, glowing with a pulsing, electric blue light. The once lifeless objects now hummed with energy, an ominous resonance that defied explanation. On the bridge of the Zerula, the atmosphere shifted from cocky assurance to a simmering tension. Holographic screens flickered with alerts, but Captain Yure brushed off the data as irrelevant. Ignore the spectacle, he ordered, his voice steadier than his racing thoughts. They're trying to intimidate us with theatrics. But the shimmering rods had other plans. Without warning, they erupted in a chaotic surge of energy. Blinding bursts of blue lightning exploded outward, arcing through space and smashing into the Zerul ships with brutal force. The impact was neither elegant nor controlled, yet it achieved devastating results. Zerulian shields, designed to withstand the most advanced and refined weaponry, buckled under the raw, untamed onslaught. Entire warships trembled, and the energy blast punched through hulls with savage simplicity. On the bridge, chaos descended. Warning sirens blared, and the steady hum of confidence shattered into desperate shouts. Systems that had once been flawless began to short out, filling the air with the acrid smell of burnt circuits. The holographic displays flickered wildly as power fluctuated, making it difficult to gain any clear readings. Officers, once composed and smug, scrambled to their stations, their movements frenzied as they tried to make sense of the relentless assault. Captain Yure, who had commanded victories against some of the galaxy's most formidable foes, found himself gripped by a rare sensation: panic. His fingers dug into the armrests of his command chair as he barked orders into the chaos. Reinforce shields. Redirect power from the auxiliary systems. His voice, usually calm and commanding, now carried an unmistakable edge of desperation. Commander Kral, who had only moments earlier mocked humanity, was now wide-eyed and pale, his hands trembling as he struggled to stabilize the ship's energy grid. "Captain," he stammered, his voice cracking, "the shields, they're not holding. These energy blasts are interfering with our systems in unpredictable ways." Another officer shouted over the din, her face twisted with fear. "Our targeting systems are malfunctioning. I can't get a clear lock on the rods." Captain Yure's gaze darted to the main display. The rod's chaotic energy continued to lash out, turning the once proud Zerul fleet into a floundering mess. His mind raced, trying to reconcile the primitive appearance of these defenses with the destruction they now wreaked. He had underestimated humanity, and the price of his arrogance was being paid in fire and ruin. Just as the fleet began to regroup, a second wave of rods activated. This time they launched themselves with terrifying speed, turning into deadly projectiles. Unlike the initial bursts of chaotic energy, these rods moved with precision, targeting the weakest points in the Zerul shields. They slammed into the warships with brutal efficiency, breaching hulls and tearing through the advanced systems that had once been the pride of Zerul engineering. The bridge of the Zerula was a scene of pure mayhem. Sparks rained from the ceiling as overloaded panels exploded. Officers struggled to keep their balance, some thrown to the ground as the ship shuddered under the relentless assault. The weapons officer, his hands slick with sweat, tried to report through the chaos. "Captain." These projectiles. They're somehow exploiting our shield frequencies. Our defenses are compromised. Captain Yuer's confidence, once unshakable, now teetered on the brink of collapse. He had always believed in the supremacy of Zerul technology, yet here he was, facing an enemy who had taken raw, primitive elements and weaponized them with terrifying ingenuity. The humans were not fighting with sophistication but with brute force and a relentless strategy that left no room for error. Evasive maneuvers, Yuer shouted, his voice raw. We must create distance from these weapons. The fleet scrambled to comply, engines roaring as the warships attempted to break formation. But the rods seemed to anticipate their every move. With the gravity of Earth pulling at them, the Zerul ships struggled to maintain control. Their advanced thrusters, designed for open space, fought against the gravitational forces that the humans had turned into another weapon. Amid the chaos, a human transmission crackled through their communication systems. The voice was calm, almost unnervingly so, as it delivered a warning. Zerul fleet, you are advised to retreat immediately. Further aggression will result in total annihilation. You have witnessed only a fraction of our capabilities. The cold, composed tone of the human message sent chills down the spines of the alien officers. Even in the heart of the battle, humanity's voice carried a quiet strength, a certainty that sent a tremor of fear through the bridge. Captain Yuer clenched his fists, his pride battling with the cold reality closing in around him. These humans, whom he had dismissed so easily, had proven themselves far more formidable than he had ever imagined. He could see the impact of this realization on his crew. Morale was crumbling, hope slipping away with each shudder of the Zerula. Officers exchanged panicked glances, their once unshakable loyalty faltering as the overwhelming human resistance broke their spirit. For the first time, Captain Yuer found himself questioning the doctrines of the Zerul Empire, wondering if surrender might be the only way to save what remained of his fleet. But even as the thought crossed his mind, another explosion rocked the ship. The humans were unyielding, their improvised defenses turning every aspect of Earth's environment into a deadly weapon. Captain Yuer swallowed the bitter taste of fear, knowing that the next decision he made could be the difference between survival and complete annihilation. The Zerul fleet struggled to regroup, engines burning brightly as the warships maneuvered desperately to escape the chaotic onslaught of humanity's improvised defenses. The once proud formation was shattered, a scattering of elegant vessels now limping and disorganized in Earth's unforgiving orbit. Captain Yuer's eyes darted across the flickering holographic displays, trying to make sense of the chaos that surrounded him. Earth itself seemed to be working against them, and the humans, far from retreating, pressed their advantage with terrifying efficiency. The rods that had once seemed laughable now worked in concert with the planet's gravitational field, turning natural forces into deadly weapons. Zerul warships found themselves caught in unexpected gravitational shifts, their advanced systems struggling to compensate. The gravitational pull of the planet threw off targeting arrays and destabilized engines, sending several ships spiraling off course. Another transmission crackled through the bridge, that same calm, composed human voice cutting through the noise and confusion. Zerul fleet, you have been warned. This is your final opportunity to retreat. Our defenses are prepared to escalate further if necessary. Persist, and you will face total destruction. The voice was steady, almost cold in its detachment, and it unnerved the alien officers more than the chaos unfolding around them. Captain Yuer gritted his teeth, feeling the weight of that voice pressing into his mind. How could these humans, with their primitive world, maintain such composure in the face of a Zerul invasion? Commander Krall turned to Yuer, panic evident in his wide eyes. Captain, our weapons systems are still malfunctioning, and the shields cannot hold. Every attempt to adjust for Earth's gravitational disruptions is failing. We're being outmaneuvered. The bridge was a cacophony of voices, officers barking out desperate reports as one Zerul warship after another fell victim to humanity's strategy. Even the most advanced ships could not withstand the relentless pressure, and as energy blasts and gravitational forces wreaked havoc, Captain Yuer felt his pride crumbling. For the first time in his career, he was facing an enemy whose methods defied Zerulian logic and doctrine. Captain, shouted the engineering officer, sweat streaming down his face. We're losing critical systems. Hull integrity on our rear sections is compromised. If we don't retreat, we will be torn apart. Yur's fingers tightened around the armrests of his command chair, his knuckles pale. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to fight, to refuse retreat. The Zerul Empire had never known surrender. But the reality was undeniable. Human tactics were not advanced in the way the Zerul expected. They were something entirely different, something raw and dangerous. These humans, with their resourcefulness, had weaponized their planet itself. Earth's atmosphere and gravity, the magnetic fields and even simple orbital physics all had become part of a relentless human strategy. Another ship exploded in a brilliant burst of light, and the bridge of the Zerula was momentarily bathed in the glow of a fallen comrade. Yur could feel the morale of his crew shattering, the once proud warriors of the Zerul Empire now reduced to fear-stricken souls, unsure of their fate. Desperation gripped the bridge, and officers exchanged helpless glances, their faith in their commander wavering. "Captain Yur," came the weapons officer's broken voice, "they've outmaneuvered us at every turn. We can't fight this, not with our current strategies." The words pierced Yur's pride, each syllable a stab to his once unshakable confidence. The doctrines of his people echoed in his mind. Zerul warriors do not retreat. They do not surrender. But here, in the orbit of this defiant blue planet, that doctrine seemed nothing more than a fool's stubbornness. The humans had adapted, using every resource they had at their disposal, and the Zerul fleet had underestimated them. The human voice returned, a grim reminder of the situation. "This is your final warning. Earth will not yield." Yur clenched his jaw, his pride at war with the reality he could no longer ignore. He had always been a proud warrior, a believer in Zerul supremacy, but now he was a captain with a crumbling fleet and terrified officers looking to him for salvation. His heart pounded as he weighed his options, knowing that the consequences of failure would be catastrophic. Yet every second he delayed, more of his people died, and the crushing realization that he had no other choice began to take hold. He swallowed hard, the bitterness of defeat searing his throat. Pride and honor were luxuries he could not afford. His voice, when he finally spoke, was heavy with the weight of a decision he had never thought he'd have to make. "Prepare to issue a general retreat," he ordered, his voice cracking. "All ships pull back. We will regroup outside this system." The bridge fell silent for a moment, the disbelief palpable. Then, like a dam breaking, officers sprang into action, relaying Yur's orders to the fleet. The Zerula shuddered as its engines roared to life, joining the remaining warships in a desperate retreat. But the humans were not yet done. As if to drive home the message, a final wave of rods launched, tearing through the retreating fleet and crippling yet more Zerul ships. Captain Yur watched the destruction, his heart heavy with grief and shame. He had led his fleet into disaster, blinded by arrogance, and humanity had shown him the cost. The retreat was brutal, each second a reminder of their defeat, but it was a retreat nonetheless. As the remnants of the Zerul fleet limped away from Earth, Yur's gaze remained fixed on the blue planet, a mixture of awe and dread swirling within him. Humanity's resilience and adaptability had turned their weakness into a weapon, and the lesson was painfully clear: never again would the galaxy underestimate Earth. The voice of the human commander echoed in his mind, a warning that he knew he would never forget. Captain Yur sat in the center of the crumbling chaos that was once the command bridge of the mighty Zerula, his eyes heavy with disbelief. Reports came flooding in, painting a grim picture. Nearly half of the Zerul fleet was now debris, scattered across Earth's orbit. The remainder of the ships were battered, limping, engines sputtering as they struggled to maintain any semblance of formation. The relentless human assault had driven them to the brink. The incoming transmission from human forces crackled once more, but this time it was different. An intercepted message, fragmented but clear enough, detailed something called Operation Cataclysm. It was a threat, a promise of an even more catastrophic attack if the Zerul fleet refused to withdraw. Captain Yur's heart sank as he listened, the gravity of the warning sinking in. The humans were not bluffing. Their resourcefulness had already brought his fleet to its knees. And now they threatened a final blow that could obliterate everything. The intelligence officer's face was pale, his voice shaking as he relayed the details. Captain, the humans have. Unconventional means. We've barely understood the extent of their weaponry. This Operation Cataclysm, it could be the end of us. Ur clenched his fists, a storm of conflicting emotions raging within him. Pride, duty, and the fierce Zerul doctrines forbidding retreat battled against the harsh reality. He had underestimated this planet, this species, and now he stood on the precipice of total destruction. The Zerul Empire had sent him to conquer a backwater world, and now he was faced with the decision that no captain ever wanted to make. More reports flooded in, each more dire than the last. Another warship erupted into flames, its hull breached by an energy surge, sending debris spinning into the void. Ur watched the destruction unfold on the main screen, feeling a tightening in his chest. Every Zerul life lost weight on him, the faces of his crew members etched in his mind. His confidence had once been unshakable, but now he was forced to question everything he had ever believed about war and dominance. A young officer stumbled toward him, tears glistening in her eyes. "Captain, we can't hold much longer. Our defenses are failing. We need to make a choice now." Ur's gaze swept across the battered faces of his crew, officers who had once looked to him with unwavering trust. Their terror was palpable, their faith broken, and he could no longer deny that he had led them into a disaster of unimaginable scale. The humans had turned the battlefield into a theater of raw, brutal ingenuity, and every second they stayed increased the risk of total annihilation. "Prepare to issue the retreat command," Ur finally said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. His voice wavered, but he forced himself to continue. "All remaining ships, pull back. We will not lose more lives in this slaughter." A stunned silence fell over the bridge, followed by a flurry of movement as officers relayed the order. The Zerul fleet, once a symbol of unmatched strength, began to turn away from Earth. Engines flared, and the warships limped away, engines straining to pull free from the gravitational grip of the blue planet. But as if to drive the point home, humanity delivered one final, devastating blow. A series of rods, faster and deadlier than before, shot through space. They tore into the retreating warships, their impact shattering shields and breaching hulls. The Zerula shuddered violently as one rod slammed into its side, and Ur was thrown from his command chair. Sparks erupted around him, and the bridge filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. The final blow was a warning, a declaration that the cost of invasion had been paid in full. Captain Ur struggled to his feet, his body aching and his mind reeling. The Zerula was damaged but still operational, and his surviving officers worked with desperate precision to stabilize the ship. The fleet was pulling away, but it was a retreat marked by ruin and loss. Ur sank back into his chair, staring at the blue planet that had so thoroughly defeated him. A planet he had once dismissed as insignificant. A heavy silence settled over the bridge as the Zerul fleet finally broke free from Earth's orbit. The human forces did not pursue them, they had made their statement, and it had been heard loud and clear. Ur's hands trembled as he gripped the armrests, his mind racing with thoughts of what had gone wrong. The humans had not just defended themselves, they had done so with a tenacity and ingenuity that defied explanation. Captain Commander Krall said, his voice soft and broken, "We've lost so many. What do we tell the High Council?" Ur closed his eyes, the weight of his defeat pressing down on him. What could he say? That he had underestimated a species capable of transforming their very world into a weapon. That human resilience had outmatched Zerul technology in a way he had never imagined. The galaxy would never forget this day, and the reputation of the Zerul Empire had been irrevocably scarred. He opened his eyes, looking out at the stars. "We tell them the truth," he said, his voice low, "that we faced a force unlike any other. That humanity is not to be underestimated." He admired, even in his grief, the strength and adaptability of the humans. They had transformed their weaknesses into strengths, turning desperation into victory. Captain Ur knew that he would never forget the lessons learned here, and he knew that the galaxy, too, would soon come to understand the power of Earth. A small, primitive planet, yes, but one that had proven capable of defying even the greatest of galactic powers. The Zerul fleet limped away into the void, a broken shadow of its former glory. And Captain Ur, once so certain of his empire's invincibility, could only watch as the blue planet shrank in the distance. a grim reminder that arrogance had a steep price. Humanity's warning echoed in his mind, and he knew that the galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again.